Today on this episode, I am joined by Ryder McConville. We are going to discuss multiple things, including, if Omar Kelly's watching, we're going to have a few laughs about Chop Robinson, that's for sure. But have the tensions between Tua, Tyreek, and the Miami Dolphins boiled over? Talk about that. Also, I'll get his thoughts on the Miami Dolphins draft class, the UDFA class, and so much more. Do me the favor, smash the like button. Subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. It's going over the touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we're back here for another one. I had no idea what happened there because I didn't actually actively mute myself, so I have no idea how I got muted. But anyways, for all of you watching this after the fact, you have no idea what I'm talking about because that's been chopped out. Ryder, we've been talking about it for quite some time, bringing you on. Glad we could finally do it. I know the fans have been wanting to see me and you collab, so we got to give the fans what they want. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I thought my headset was turned up. I was like, oh, God, is he going to call me and I'm not going to be ready?
It's all good, man. In case, for all you not familiar, go over and subscribe to Ryder on YouTube. I'll put his link in the description after the fact. I forgot to do it before we went live, but after this is live, I'll put his link in the description. Go give him a sub. Go show him some love, all right? He does some of the best film breakdowns in the Dolphins community, and he's one of the few people you can count on one hand that you can trust actually watches the All-22 in this community as a content creator. So shout out to him for coming out here. Really, honestly, I think, you're the stuff, the film breakdowns you were doing. I think the coverage me and Kyle were given for the draft. I think us three had Dolphin fans pretty well locked down for the draft, man. So great to talk about. Before we get into the draft, because I'm going to pick your brain about the draft, because we had a lot of guys we similarly liked, if I remember correctly. So, but before we get into that, I want to get your thoughts on Tyreek, bro, because, everyone's making the big deal about the video. Now, people are telling me, hey, Reason, there's a version of it on his Twitch, and he actually left out to it. Now, I've still yet to find that version, but, I mean, that's besides the point. It's one thing after another with this guy. Sometimes the better thing in life is addition by subtraction. When Kyle was up here, he said, listen, he's like, I would have traded him as soon as the season ended for whatever I could have got for him. What are your thoughts on how the Dolphins have handled the Tyreek Hill situation? And what do you think they should do as this thing continues to kind of snowball?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like every other day with Tyreek, something going on there. And I agree with what Kyle was saying. Like, I would have traded him right away, get the most out of it. It feels like that's the last step with this offseason. Like, they've been kind of rebuilding the culture. They're already planning to get rid of Ramsey. Feels like Tyreek's that last step. And it just makes sense. Like, and you have, like, if there's one player in the league that could potentially replace a Tyreek, you have him on the roster in Jalen Waddle. You don't necessarily need two of those guys. It's great to have. He's a very talented player. But I think the Dolphins, to find more offensive success anyways, need to be more balanced. Seems like that's what they're doing with some of the offensive line additions. But yeah, I think they definitely should have moved on, but it feels like that's not where that's happening this season. But hopefully he doesn't cause too many more problems. But like, when he does stuff like this, I'm just like, it's just, that's who Tyreek is at this point. Like, he's just a big troll on Twitter.
So this is what I'll tell you what I reported and what I heard. Okay, so this is what I heard.
Yeah.
I'll give people the scoop. This is on my Patreon on my channel. So this is what I heard. So between Tua and Tyreek, this is what I've heard has happened. Okay, I heard. Well, we can count Waddle in here too. I heard Tua and Waddle were not happy with Tyreek for quitting on the team. Like that video they posted of like Waddle laughing and saying, "You done, Reek? You done, Reek?" Was, you know, when you people have like awkward, uncomfortable laughs. That's what that was, I was told, apparently. Like, he wasn't joking around. It was like, yo, you're done. And so from what I've heard is Tua is mad that he quit on the team, but I've heard Tyreek is mad that Tua didn't push to play through that hip injury. And his whole reasoning was, you're the franchise quarterback. You can tell them what to do and what goes and what doesn't go. You could have pushed through it. You didn't while I was playing through, you know, a wrist injury that needed surgery. So I was told when the season ends, now it might have changed because they've all reported, bro. I was told they didn't even talk really after the season ended, Tyreek and Tua. So that's why when this video came out yesterday, I actually wasn't shocked.
Yeah.
Because if I'm hearing legit tension behind the scenes, and this is the first time he's ever made a quarterback list and left Tua off of it, it all kinds of adds up, right? So, you know, I don't know, like, honestly, dude, I wouldn't have been, you know, obviously I wanted Kenneth Grant, but I wouldn't have hated them if he was on the board and they took 10 at 13. You know, I would have been like, okay, I want Kenneth, but I get it, you know, like, because last year I heard they were looking around and sniffing around Roma Dunze. If he would have fallen off the top out of the top 10, they were sniffing around a potential trade up for Roma Dunze. What did you think of the receiver class this year? Who was your wide receiver one?
I believe I had Tet at the top, but I didn't like love anybody in this class. Like at least top end. Like I think there was some good players across the board. Like I think there was some solid day two talent. Like I was a big like Jack Besh guy, Jalen Knoll.
Yeah.
Those types of players. But
bro, the Texans lucked out, with Higgins and Knoll. Like,
yeah, that was. I even like Knoll better than Higgins, so I like really like that pick for them. Higgins is good too, though. Like,
oh yeah, I love them both, man.
It'll be interesting to see that room that they have.
Oh, dude, that room's stacked, eh? And you know what Knoll feels like? He feels like the guy that comes out of nowhere and gives you like a Puka year. You know, like he's that deadly and explosive. Like, if we didn't have Tyreek and Waddle and Malik, I would love a Jalen Knoll added to this room, right? But we needed more of the, like you mentioned, the Jack Besh. We needed more of that. We need more Jaden Higgins is what we needed, right? All right, so let's talk about, you briefly touched on. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Ramsey, what are you thinking on this situation? Because it's clear he loves Weaver, he likes Greer, he likes a lot of the players that have been here. It's clearly, you know, he doesn't like Mike McDaniel. He doesn't like his demeanor, his culture, his coaching style. And you could really see it in Hard Knocks when like McDaniel was like forcing himself on Ramsey when he got here. And Ramsey was like kind of like looking at him like, you could see it on Hard Knocks earlier. Like Ramsey kind of looking at him like, all right, what's this guy about? What are your thoughts on the whole Jalen Ramsey situation? And as a Dolphin fan, like just from a fan, like take yourself out of the YouTube guy, put yourself in a fan's perspective. How do you feel that they've known about this since before the combine and they haven't addressed it at all, really?
Yeah, that part is kind of crazy that they have not really done anything at corner. Other than, you know, a day 3 pick, they signed Artie Burns, but they really didn't do anything substantial. The whole situation with Ramsey isn't necessarily surprising. He's kind of had problems with certain like staffs before. Like I used to live in Southern California. I used to do catering for the Rams. So I heard a lot of the stuff when he was there. Like there was the COVID year, he actually like never showed up. Like he refused to play under whatever their D coordinator was at the time. He like, really the guy that was he used to be head coach for the Chargers.
Staley, Brandon Staley.
Yeah, like he was not a fan of Staley at all, and then that kind of, I think, caused some problems. That's what led there. To it, right?
Oh
yeah. And it just seems like, I don't know, he has very like, I don't think anything's wrong with Ramsey. I just think he has like a very specific way of doing things, and it just does not mesh with McDaniel at all.
So what do you think? You were watching the film last year. Do you think we were getting like, okay, I don't want to say we're getting into X territory because it's evident X was losing more than a step.
Yeah.
But we were seeing Ramsey trail a lot more last year than we had in previous years. And this is a guy who behind the scenes was advocating for that to be in more of that enhanced star role.
Yeah.
What did you think about Ramsey? You saw as a guy who, let's be real here, he's going to be 31, and we all know what the deal is. This conversation all probably started because he has no guaranteed money beyond this year. So he probably sat down and said, okay, let's talk about my financial security. And they're like, yeah, let's play it out. And he's like, well, I don't like McDaniel either, so I'm not going to play this out. What are your thoughts? Like, where do you stand on all that?
Like, I thought he was pretty good last season. Like, he wasn't great or elite. Like, I don't think he was playing up to his contract. Yeah, like he was getting paid. And I always thought, like, when we first traded for Ramsey, I was like, play Ramsey at corner for a year or two. When Weaver comes in, like, I think he can play like how they used Kyle Hamilton. And when Ramsey came out of Florida State, I thought like he was a top tier safety, like coming out of Florida State. And I was like, he had the whole Charles Woodson path that he could go down. I think that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be with Miami, but I think he'll eventually move around, get more of that nickel star safety type of role in the future.
All right, so let's talk about the draft class, man. Kenneth Grant at 13. What did you want at 13? Were you happy with the pick? What are your thoughts on the pick at 13?
Yeah, I would say leading up to the draft, the final three I was sort of thinking at 13 was Johnny Barron, Kenneth Grant, and Will Johnson before all the big injury news came out. And I was like, okay, Grant or Barron, I'm happy with both. I'm a big fan of both. It felt like, just from what I was seeing from people say, just knowing the Dolphins, that they would more lean towards Grant. That's what they did. And I'm a big fan of Grant. I think even some people have underrated parts of his game, because I feel like people just see him and think, he's a big nose tackle that eats up space. And he can do that, but I actually think he's at his best disrupting, playing as like a one gapper. Like, he's so explosive. And I think he's a better pass rusher than people give him credit for. It's still like can add to his repertoire. But I think the whole like pass, like even like the pass rush like bag thing has become a little bit overrated as the year. Like last year's edge class is a perfect example. Chop and Verse were the best edges in that class. Did better than Latu, and Latu had like the crazy bag, and Chop and Verse would win in like their 2 to 3 specific ways. And I think Grant sort of has like 2 ways he can win specifically. If he can have maybe one more move, be put in more advantageous positions. Because sometimes when you're playing as like a nose, 1 tech, 2 eye, you're not in the best spots to get like true pass rush reps.
I appreciate the fact of, how much he knows. Like, listen, I agree. Is he refined from a pass rush moveset? No. Is his pass rush game plan the most refined? No. But the fact that he's winning the way he's winning.
He's still winning, yeah.
Using just his athleticism, his power. And let's be honest. Yeah, he might not have the biggest bag of tricks, but he knows how to use his length. Like you'll see him win with a swim over. Just very well, you know what I mean? Like, he just knows how to use his length and what basically his God-given talent is. And that's why I think, like, we were talking about, I know me and you kind of took Omar Kelly out the back of the woodshed over Chop Robinson, but it's kind of almost a little bit of the same thing in terms of Chop. Okay, let's talk about it, because you break down the film, so I know I can have this discussion with you. So Chop, one of the things that stood out to me last year when you watched Chop Robinson's film, and I knew this would happen under Anthony Weaver, because, again, evaluations, a lot of it is projection, especially when you know the environment these players are going to and what they're getting, right? So with Chop, I don't know if you noticed it, but about halfway through the season, did you notice his counter bag of tricks started improving?
Yes.
And did you notice how he started mixing, like it wasn't even a counter? He would mix like a double move right off the snap, right? You know what I mean? Like, he'd hit you with, like whatever it was, whether it was he loved the bull.
That was kind of what it was to start the year. Like, it was just pure speed to power.
Exactly.
It was just pure speed to power, run down the middle. And then he started, like, he still kept using speed to power a lot, but it was more like mix up his footwork, like maybe attack outside leverage first, inside leverage later. The tempo he would mix up. And then, he always had like a 2-hand swipe, but he just wasn't using it yet. Yeah. The rip, like, I feel like balance was probably a big issue for him. Yeah. Because I feel like when he tried to rip, he kept going to the ground. But then he started
kept getting held. right?
Yeah,
And he
that
kept getting
happened a lot
held off
too,
that
yeah.
rip because he would win a lot with that rip early on before he started getting the I really noticed it in the Colts game. He was
So
really
folded.
winning with that
Yeah.
rip early on, but he was getting held and he wasn't getting the flags early. Then he started getting the flags because clearly they got into the ref's ears over like the weeks and
Yeah.
sending in the film and saying, yo, look, watch this, he's getting held. But he loved that bull into the rip and he was winning with it. Like, anyways, the point of where I'm going with this is if we could see him improve that, and even his counters are improving, what do we're going to see that with Kenneth, I think, bro. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's just natural. He's going to get coached up. And, we talk about Wilkins, right? Like, man, I don't know about you, but I see a far more alien athlete for that size on tape than I did with Wilkins.
Yeah. He's more like a Dexter Lawrence when they went, like, because it's almost kind of similar to like the Lawrence and Wilkins when they came out at the same time. Graham is more of a Wilkins type. Well, Grant was more of that Dexter Lawrence. I mean, Lawrence is one of the better one techs in the league. Like, you don't see many one techs getting that kind of disruption. I think Grant has that potential, and I think he's still going to be pretty good right away, even if he doesn't reach that potential.
Dude, I like, call me crazy, bro. I had him as my DC1. I think his pass rush upside is higher than Mason Graham.
Yeah, I don't think it's
crazy. I don't know, man. You know what I see? And I hate comps, bro. Like, you'll rarely hear me ever make comps, but I literally see Vita Vea with like elite athleticism. Like, that's the ceiling I see with this kind of disruptor. This kid could be at the next level, man. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I can never get past? Did you watch the Illinois game?
Yes,
bro. I will never get. That was the first time in my life. First of all, he can one gap and two gap because he's so big and athletic. It's amazing. But anyways, I've never seen a man take on a double, all right, use one side of the double, drive it into the tight end, pulling across the backside to collapse that on the running back 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Like, that is insane.
Like, I remember that play. He just exploded off the ball.
Bro, that's freak stuff, man. Like, that is like, you can't teach that, man. So, man, I'm super excited to see let me ask you this, sticking with him for a sec. Do you think there's a world where we have one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL this year? Kind of like how the Rams were with that certain mixture of when they added Fiske and they added Verse to what they'd already put together out there?
Yeah, I think it's far and away the biggest strength of the team right now. Your defensive, like your edges and D tackle room now, like because you clearly have your starters on the D tackle, and now you've added some depth as well. And then your top three edge guys, if they're healthy, it's a really good trio. So I think that's like the potential saving grace for the secondary, which is the biggest weakness.
What do you think of Mo Kamara in year one?
I liked Mo coming out, but we didn't really see anything from him. So that will be interesting to see.
Like, after that Colts game, right? Like, he led the team in pressures, right? He was tied for the team lead pressures. And then we didn't really see him after that. Do you think it's because they just viewed him as too much of a run liability?
I think they wanted to, like, I feel like they kind of view him as in Chop as like the same like weak side edge position. And they wanted to get Chop more of those reps. That's kind of like, I think they just want to have Chop and him on this field at the same time. They're more, but and he's 5th round pick. Sometimes they just don't get the playing time.
That's true. Jonah Savaiinaea at 37. What did you think about the trade up, and what do you think about the addition of the player?
Yeah, I would say trade up. I understand. I'm just a big anti-trade up person in general. I never really like trading up. But I understand, like, he was going to be gone. It's been heavily reported now. Going to go to New England. He was their guy. I definitely like the player, and I just like the direction Miami's gone in general in the draft. And going trenches, getting more physical, getting guys that have a history of staying healthy, with which these guys do, and clearly was a huge need. Like, now I feel pretty good at least about the starting offensive line. I think if you lose more than one, you're kind of screwed again. But the starting line is pretty good. He plays just really under controlled, pretty good athlete. I think I want to see, there's certain times I think where he could play like with a little more finish. I feel like he tries to play too under controlled, like he doesn't want to miss his blocks. I just want to play with some more nastiness sometimes, because he has it, like he flashes it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
he
you
clearly
see
has
it.
the size and athleticism and like play strength, but he's a very consistent pass pro guy. I think even at guard, he'll be even more consistent because sometimes at tackle, like maybe he would miss a punch and he could get taken advantage of, but that will become even less of a problem at guard. So I like the pick for sure.
So you talked about his nastiness. I've seen some people on like Twitter trying to say like, "Oh, I don't see him pancake people enough." But again, if you watch the film, you can see
Yeah.
clearly see the power, and you can clearly see that edge he has to him. Now, you like, okay, so what do you think about the fact that they restructured Austin Jackson and put themselves on the hook for basically 16 million next year, when now you brought in a guy who can play right guard, left guard, but can also go out and kick out in to right tackle in a pinch? Like, I'll tell you, before the combine happened, I was, leading the Armand Membo train, right?
Yep.
And but my thing was, my one of the big reasons was, okay, I can start him at right guard in year one, and if Austin goes down, I kick him out to right tackle, and I've got my answer at right tackle. Now, I don't know if I'd want Savaiinaea there permanently at right tackle. I think he could do it if he wanted to, but I'd prefer him at guard.
Yeah.
What do you think about the whole dynamic of, you got a guy who can play tackle in a pinch and a guy who's always hurt this much, and you just restructured him to give him more money next year?
Yeah, well, one, to your point about the Membo thing, I was on that same sort of thought process for a while, talking about that in my chat too.
Yeah.
Just having a guy that, because Jackson has a pretty big injury history.
Yeah.
So having, and I do think, Membo was more of a guy that would be like, I could see starting at guard, but then being a tackle the rest of his career.
Yeah.
Savaiinaea is more of a guy that I see being a guard that can play tackle when you need him to, but still go back to guard.
Yeah, I agree.
So it is nice to have. I think I guess they had to like restructure somebody, and they decided to go with Jackson just with the moves they made. So I think if McDaniel's still here, it's fine, because I think that's the thing with the O-line. If the O-line is under McDaniel, there will be totally fine this year. But I would have real problems with these tackles in a different system where they're asked to do like true pass sets a lot.
Yeah.
They'll play a bully in a run game, but
are you a fan of Patrick Paul?
When we made the pick, I was not a fan of it at all. It was like one of my least favorite picks they've made. I think now I'm like, I can see the potential there. I still don't love it.
I agree. I'm there.
There was to me with the tackle is like, there was bigger, the guards were bigger issues than Patrick Paul being tackle. So I think fixing that made more sense. There was just there's bigger fish to fry than to try to upgrade over Patrick Paul. So I'm like, and he was going to play no matter what. And as long as you're doing like the stuff with the play action, not getting them in true pass, it's a lot. Like, I think your tackles are at least athletic and can move people. And if they do that, like, I think that really helps out the team. You should want to keep them in those one-on-one pass sets and left, which they don't.
Would you move James Daniels to left guard and have the veteran next to Patrick Paul, and then put Savaiinaea next to the veteran Austin Jackson while he's healthy?
Yeah, I think I would do that. I think if you drafted a guard that was like only comfortable at left guard, I would have left James Daniels at right guard. Don't want to mess up the rookie. But since I think like we've seen Savaiinaea, I at least seen him play a bunch of left tackle, and he looks fine there. But I feel like he just looks way more comfortable moving on the right side. Like, that's his natural way. And Daniels has done both. And it makes sense from that perspective to have Daniels next to Paul, next to a veteran, and then you get to have Jackson and Savaiinaea next to each other, which makes more sense.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned when the starting five are healthy. Let me ask you this: if this starting five stays healthy this year, I mean, I think we got a top 15 line. What do you think? If they stay healthy, if
they stay healthy, it's definitely a much improved line, and like maybe talent wise, I don't know where I would rank them, but I would say when you consider scheme, it definitely elevates them. Just like you have great fits across the board. Like, I think like Brewer, like this is what I've always talked about with the offensive line. Like Brewer and the Titans, he was deemed terrible, but then when you watch film, like, oh, he's gonna fit like a glove in Miami. Like, they're gonna make his weaknesses become less prominent, and like his strengths are gonna get maximized. And he was probably your most consistent offensive lineman last year. So that's kind of how I see the offensive line being like it's similar to the 2023 season. When you had 4 out of the 5 at least healthy, you were pretty good offensively. Once you started going to like 3 out of 5, 2 out of 5, then your offense hit a brick wall.
Yeah, and that's what scares me. Like, I don't think the depth here is like very good. If you got to rely on guys like Larry Borum and Liam Eichenberg,
Yeah.
That's not going to probably end very well, especially if one of those guys has to go next to Patrick Paul. You know what I mean? That's probably not going to go very well at all. And I am expecting, if they are healthy, I think the biggest improvement we'd see is I think that run game would get back on track to more like what it was in 2023 than what we saw last year. What did you think about the Ollie Gordon pick?
Yeah, I think that was pretty good value in the 6th round. Obviously, I mean, people talk about him not having the greatest 2024 season. I think that was, due to many different reasons, but
yeah,
he's clearly very talented, big body. I think he can at least right away would be one of probably your best pass protection back and probably your best short yardage guy. And I mean, getting that in the 6th round is at least helpful. I also think he's like pretty fluid and flexible for his size. He runs hard. Actually reliable hands too out of the backfield. He's not gonna run routes or anything, but you can give him some check downs to work with. I'm not a big Alexander Madison fan, so I would slot Gordon as RB3
same
pretty quickly. And I'm excited to watch him in the preseason. That's I think one of the better. I would probably say it's the 2nd best value pick Miami made.
What do you think the first best value pick
I would
is?
say I think Jordan Phillips. I think Jordan Phillips can be really good.
Really, eh? What are your thoughts on him?
One, I think he's 20 years old. And I think similarly to the Grant thing, is he had 0 sacks and he's still raw as a pass rusher, but his pass rush win rate was quite high, especially a guy just playing pure nose. I think his pass rush win rate was 16.7, and which is very high for a nose tackle. If you watch his and he's just bullying people.
Yeah,
he's explosive. He's so explosive and powerful. And he's another guy that I've seen win as a 1-gapper, 2-gapper. I kind of had him in that same range of players, around where CJ West and Ty Robinson went. I thought Phillips should have gone shortly after those guys. I'm a big fan of that pick.
I'm pretty sure that's why we traded back, was because of that run on Walker, West, and Ty Robinson right before we picked.
Yeah, that would make sense there.
Yeah,
I've seen people
I think they were targeting
CJ.
I think they were targeting CJ. Yeah.
That makes the most sense with the Phillips pick, because I think West and Phillips were pretty similar styles.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
I like the Phillips pick too, but you know what I like about it the most? Man, this is going to come down to who watches the film and who knows how to project, baby, because you got to project on this. This is all projection on Jordan Phillips. And you know what's crazy about him too? If you actually think about it, he actually went in reverse, right? He went from Tennessee to Maryland. Usually you go from Maryland to Tennessee, right? So, and like you said, man, 20 years old. I think, didn't we have one of the youngest drafts? And it's because his age crashed our draft number, right?
Well, yeah. I don't think we drafted anyone that was over 23 either. And usually a team will draft we saved all our older guys for UDFAs. And that's where you take the chance on some older guys.
Agreed. Did you like the Trader and the Marshall picks?
So during the draft, those were the only 2 I hadn't really watched in the moment. So I was okay, I don't know. I think going back, the Marshall is probably my least favorite pick they made.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'm never gonna. It's a 5th round pick, so I'm not gonna hate on it too hard.
The UDFA, glorified UDFA, right?
It's there was probably there were the other corners there was Frazier and Strong, which I'm those I probably would have taken them over that, but I think I do have a theory just based on stuff I've been seeing and based on how the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are going to be more of a cover one, run more man to man this season. They
are. That's what I've heard. Privately, they are. Yep.
If you look at the other teams that run the Weaver system, Baltimore, Seattle, they were very similar coverage wise to us, but ran cover one at a 10% higher rate. Yep. Then they got rid of Fuller right away. Fuller, who's a heavy zone off man guy. They're also getting rid of Ramsey, who I think Ramsey's been at his best side of his career, out of phase coverages. Yep. They kept Kohu, who was at his best year 1 in the Flores system under Boyer. And then
I feel don't you feel like they're gonna bounce Kohu out to the boundary? And they're just telling us? I got a feeling, bro. Anyways, keep going, sorry.
And then they drafted Jason Marshall Jr., who I think is at his best in press man. And then even the UDFA, BJ Adams, and even Ethan Robinson, that I don't think he'll make it, but when I watch Ethan Robinson's film, I'm oh, he was at his best in press man too. So that's kind of I think all the signs are pointing towards that. And
bro, you're dead on, bro, because I had a Patreon report was it? I forget which one I did. It was either the last one or the one before. So I'd heard multiple times since before the combine that they wanted to go more man defensively. I was even told again before the draft, hey, take it for what it's worth. They want to go more man.
Yeah.
And
I think
then
it's
I
smart.
watched the BJ Adams. They had dude. I think BJ Adams is gonna make the team. They brought him in for a 30 visit. I think they love that kid, bro. I think he's gonna make the team.
Yeah, he's the last. I'm doing UDFAs right now, film breakdowns. BJ Adams is the most recent one I posted. And I was talking about him like he has a very good chance of being the next UDFA corner to this team. The Dolphins have a good history of it. And he is like pretty much only good in press man right now. But his press man technique is very good. His length is very good.
Yeah.
And he has good film versus Jaden Higgins, Jack Besh, Jalen Knoll. He had trouble with Travis Hunter, but you know, you're a UDFA, like
guys,
you're gonna have trouble with Travis Hunter. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then he had some other film against, like he went against a lot of like players that got drafted on day 2 and had quality reps versus them.
Dude, I think. All right. Well, let's talk about that. I want to go back to a few draft picks in a minute, but let's talk about the UDFA class for a second.
Yeah.
I actually like this. Like, I think Jalen Conyers is an upgrade over Julian Hill, like big time. Like,
I love Conyers.
Andrew Armstrong, Eric Izakama, count your days, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And even like, okay, will he be a starter? I don't think so. But don't you think they should be Eugene Asante would probably intrigue them more right now than Channing Tindall? Guy runs a 4.48. They're probably looking at him as he's not spoiled NFL goods right now in terms of not turning into anything, right? And like, listen, I don't know if he'll make the team, but I even like John Sanders' Junior's upside, adding him to the. I mean, the guy's a better ball hawk than what's his face than Jason Marshall. Yeah, and Trader, I guess you could say too. Yeah, but Theo Weiss, I even like Theo Weiss. You know, I think this is a good class. I think there's a couple guys. I think Jalen Connors, BJ Adams have a really good shot of making this team for sure. What do you think of this UDFA class?
I think this is probably the strongest we've had in a while in terms of like multiple, like usually there's like 3 or 4 names I look at. I'm like, oh, these guys have shots. The rest of them, I'm like potential practice squad guys, and then guys who I think are just bodies. This one, there's like 6 or 7 guys. I'm like, they could realistically make this roster, and the other one, then if they don't, keep them on the practice squad. The practice squad is more important than it's ever been. I think, pretty much every name I mentioned was top 6 for me. Another name I like, and I don't think he'll make it, but I just like his play style, is Monterey Baldwin from Baylor.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he's gonna be a fun preseason guy. And I'm like, usually these small guys, because he's bigger than Atwell, and usually these small guys like struggle through contact, or they're not good at where they don't, because it's all about projection. And I think traits that project well at the next level when it comes to smaller receivers is guys that can track the football as vertical threats. Some of them are just speed. I thought that was probably Baldwin's best trait, was his tracking ability. Like his film is just him winning on slot fades over and over and over again, and then him throwing him a screen. Like that's pretty much all he runs. But I mean, McDaniel would have fun with that. But I would love to keep him on the practice squad. I think Asante, I don't know if he'll make it because of all the free agent linebackers they added.
Yeah.
But I think the reason he could stick around is I think special teams ability is there, because he's fast, physical, and he has a lot of special teams experience.
That's, I think, his only shot to make the team is special teams.
Yeah, it's special teams. I think that's kind of where his niche will be.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like, I think I prefer Armstrong over Weiss, but from what's reported, they gave Weiss a nice guaranteed.
I know.
Which is usually the sign that that's the guy they like a lot. And I like Weiss's game. He's a very nuanced route runner for a guy of his size. He's not very explosive. He understands the nuances of the game, the tempos of routes, like soft spots versus zone. So I like both of them. Like, I think the end of the receiver room is pretty exciting. Like I expect, like I think the Ezekama thing, I think, they already put him to practice squad last year. I think he's done. I think, the ending of guys like Eskridge, we'll see what we get of Taj. Like I'm excited to see Taj Washington back. I think that'll be, but I'm like, I wonder if they'll keep 6 and like the final 2 will be maybe one of the big guys, either Armstrong, Weiss, Ezekama, and then one of the other ones will be one of the small guys in like Taj Washington, Eskridge, or it'll be interesting to see how that room plays out.
What have they've kept 7 the last couple of years, right?
Well, last year was weird. They kept 4, remember, initially?
Oh, yeah.
It was weird because everyone was hurt. And
Taj went on the season-ending IR and all that
Barrios got hurt.
Yeah,
and Ray Kraft was hurt. So they only kept 4 initially. And I think for most of the year, they only kept 5, which it was like the first time they usually didn't keep 6, which was weird. And then But also going to go on Conyers. I would say, like, I did a stream beforehand of like I went one player at each position that I thought had the best chance of being like a Miami Dolphin.
Yeah.
And at tight end, I went Conyers. I thought they would draft him late. So like I love Conyers. I heard an interview he did that it was the Niners and the Dolphins bidding for him. And I'm like, yeah, I was like total Shanahan system tight end. I've been like from the second I watched him, I was like, oh yeah, he's exactly what you're looking for. He improved as a blocker this past year. If you can just get him playing more and more physical, he's got the size, he's got the speed. I always looked at him as like the poor man's like Terrence Ferguson of the class, like similar like size, movement skills types of players.
Yeah.
And Ferguson was just more productive and played more. And I think that's kind of like Conyers fell, and he was a little bit older. But I love getting him as a UDFA.
Yeah, man. I honestly, Conyers, Armstrong, Weiss, BJ Adams, Asante, John Sanders. I think even like I'm interested to see what Josh Preby does. I mean, he is a really good athlete that you're putting on the inside, right? And let's be honest, I don't know if you saw it, but last year I did a all 22 film breakdown before the season started, basically of why Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones were not starting quality guards.
Yeah.
And you know who I was bragging about the whole video, bro? Andrew Meyer looked better than them.
I'm a fan of Andrew Meyer. I think he's still your backup center. I love his athleticism and system. And there's spots open. I mean, the Western Michigan kids are like the only kids I haven't really had a chance to watch because of no all 22. But like I saw some broadcast. I'm like, oh, they just ran a bunch of outside zone and they're athletic. I'm like, that always gives you a chance in this system.
Yeah, like Addison West, right? You're talking about?
Yeah, Addison West
Cushy.
and Cushy. Cushy
moved
like he was like got really good length and he moved well. I don't know, anything outside of that, but
I didn't watch a ton. I didn't watch a ton on Addison West and Cushy even after we signed them. But I did watch quite a bit of Preby, and I was actually much more impressed than I was when I initially like watched a little bit of him. So I like, for the way he moves, that'd be very interesting because he's a much better mover than Liam Eichenberg, right? So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. So let's hit back to the draft. Man, I think a lot of people are giving this pick way too much flack. And a lot of people I respect are giving this too much flack. The Quinn Ewers pick.
Yeah.
I thought this was fantastic value. What are we talking about here? I don't know how anyone. And again, we go back to our conversation earlier. Man, we're in glorified UDFA territory. I don't know how anyone can hate, dislike, or bash when we're getting into these picks. I guess everyone expects a day one starter at 231. I don't know what it is. What are your thoughts on the Quinn Ewers pick? Because, man, I've been saying since August, this guy's a perfect fit. I knew McDaniel would love him. I talked to a Texas reporter right after the pro day this year, and he told me and he detailed to me just how much Mike McDaniel was all over Quinn Ewers at Xavier Worthy's pro day last year. So this has been in the making, I think. What do you think of this pick? What do you think of the fit? And what do you think of the value? Because I think it's immense value. You go back to find any mock in September, Ryder, and he's a top 10 pick in 95% of the mocks.
Yeah, so for Ewers, it's a 7th round pick, so I'm not gonna hate it. And it's like if it was where the mocks were putting him in like the 3rd or 4th, then I would have been disappointed with the pick. But in the 7th round, where it's like he could easily be a solid backup, especially in this system. If you watch the Texas film, he's even talked about it. They've taken plays straight out of Miami's playbook. They do a lot of the play action. I think his biggest strengths are what would be maximized in McDaniel's system. He's got the quick, snappy release. He does a better job when playing quick. Like his biggest downside is he's not an accurate deep ball thrower, and when he gets under pressure, like he can collapse. But those are things that you're not going to be asked to do a ton of. Like usually, you can be kept clean with all the play action, RPO stuff. So in the 7th round, if he turns into a solid backup, which I think he could be, I think this is easily the best place for him to end up, even to get some playing time potentially if injuries happen. But so I'm not mad at the pick at all. It was just one of those players, like he was the QB. Like I had heard you say that before, and I also was like, out of every QB I've watched, I'm like, Ewers is the one that has the highest chance of being picked by Miami. And just so happened he was there in the 7th. Like it was what I was like, oh, Ewers is here. This is gonna be Quinn, and it ended up being him. So I was like,
yeah, dude,
makes a ton of sense.
I was on my phone. I was with my kids, and when I saw Rourke go to the 49ers right before him, I was like, oh, we're going Ewers. Here we go. Here he comes. But dude, like, sticking with Ewers here for a sec, like, and the fit and on all this kind of stuff, listen, I agree with you. I wouldn't have wanted him in the third or fourth. If you were going to give me a quarterback in the fourth round, give me Kyle McCord. But even then, I don't want a quarterback in the fourth round. I just, the value of where you got this guy, let me ask you this, okay? Because I'm sure you've dove into the BYU and the Jets film of Zach Wilson, okay? And let me run this by you since we're talking about theories today. So I've got a theory about Sean Payton. My theory is this, all right? My theory is Sean Payton just made Jarrett Stidham, who is not the athlete and doesn't have the arm talent that Zach Wilson has, okay? He just made him the highest paid backup quarterback in the NFL for the second year in a row. And I think he did that and let Zach Wilson walk. Why? Because he can operate his offense better in structure than he thinks Zach Wilson can, right? That drove Sean Payton mad about Russell Wilson. He would never operate from in structure. So I look at these guys, I look at Ewers, I look at Zach Wilson. Man, I think if you were to put a gun to my head and say, who do you trust if Tua goes down to operate this offense efficiently from in structure, I'm probably going to say Ewers over Zach Wilson, even though one of them already has NFL experience. I don't know. What are your thoughts about? That's what worries me about Zach. Everything, all of his big stuff is out of structure when everything's breaking down. Yeah. And that's what worries me if Tua goes down. And it's a realistic conversation to have because Tua's gone down every year except one. So, and then on the flip side, I don't think Ewers is going to get a fair shot, Ryder, because of the $6 million guaranteed they hand out. We know how politics play, especially with Chris Greer. I mean, we don't got to go further than Liam Eichenberg. What do you think of this situation and who you would trust to run this offense efficiently?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. Like, I would trust Ewers more, but at the end of the day, they're going to give Zach that first shot because of the money.
Yeah.
I would say the only thing I would give, I'm not like super hopeful in it, but I do think like he looked better in that Broncos preseason than I think like just more comfortable. It is preseason, but it was the most comfortable I've ever seen Zach look.
Okay.
I do agree that like the point is like, hey, he did keep Stidham over Zach, and maybe that's just a trust thing. All the reports from like Broncos people were saying like, oh, they loved Zach. But they, at the end of the day, did let him go. Maybe only just wanted to keep two quarterbacks. But yeah, I do believe that Ewers. I think Wilson is more of the higher ceiling guy, while Ewers has the higher floor, at least for this system.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know, man. Zach Wilson is just, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. It was just one of those things. Like, honestly, it's not like we're gonna get a much better backup quarterback, anyways. But at least the room's improved.
It felt like McDaniel was just like rolling the dice on the traits because I know he was the big one. I know in that draft, Shanahan was pushing for Mac, and McDaniel was the one who got a lot of people in that 49ers room on board on Trey Lance. So then when you see how he brings in Zach Wilson, it kind of adds up. Well, like that's another thing, right? Like he has this system and he talks about Tua and how he operates it better. But then you look at the people he brings in as a backup, and they're like complete opposite skill sets is what he's searching for from Tua. It's like, and I get Bevel says, or Frank Smith, whichever one it was, says, oh, well, we want to put something out there that they can't game plan for. That's totally opposite. I mean, I get that. But, like, let's be real here. Going back to your 49ers days, you like guys that can throw from different arm slots, different angles, off platform, out of structure, but then can operate in structure. Like, that's clearly what you're looking for, Mike. You know what I mean? So,
Ewers is like the first one where it was like, glove fit to what he was doing with Tua type thing.
Exactly.
Where Zach has experience in that scheme, because I think when he was with the Jets, it was like LaFleur was running it. So it was a similar system.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's the thought process, but like I still don't think he's like the greatest. Like he's not a great on timing player. He more relies on his arm strength.
Let me ask you this. Did you go back and watch some old Ewers film? Do you think that drive velocity and that accuracy on the deep level? I had Ryan Roberts on here, and he thinks that injuries are what have piled that up and taken that away from him. What do you think about that? Do you think he had it coming in and he's kind of lost a little bit of that because of all the injuries stacking up. And did you watch the Gruden's QB class? He's I don't know if you need to watch it, bro. He's tearing down his footwork. He's redoing all his footwork. And Gruden was like, bro, he brought up the coach. He's like, you've been working with this QB coach since 5 years old. I know the guy. You've got some of the best footwork. You can throw off any angle and any arm slot because of it. What are you doing? And he's like, NFL teams told me they wanted to see me change my footwork up. So what are your thoughts on Ewers and all that? Did you watch that QB class or no?
I didn't watch it, but I did hear about that part. I do think the footwork thing probably plays a part more in the deep ball accuracy.
Yeah, I agree.
Because the accuracy was way off like this season. I think the arm strength definitely could be the injury stuff. Like I don't think he ever had like the craziest arm, but it's clearly like plateaued.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it will ever get back, but I do think the footwork and timing, because he just floats those balls.
Yeah,
like
man.
Floating in the air for
a
century.
Yeah. And you know how many worthy touchdowns last year? The ball just like float, like the hang time he's getting on the ball to Worthy. I'm like, geez Louise. You know what I mean? And hey, at least he does not afraid of a little competition. He held off Arch. I will say, I don't know if I know you broke down Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. Let me ask you this. What would you say to people that are saying draft Arch Manning in 2026? Because I would say to those people, you clearly haven't watched the film because the kid ain't ready. I don't know. Did you notice how many times Golden or Bond were having to come back to the ball or manipulate their body to make the catch off an Arch Manning throw? Did you notice that like I did or no?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I noticed it with whoever was the quarterback. They were kind of struggling to hit them down the
field. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah, I do. Like, one, I think it's pretty, like, Arch is going to be 2027, probably.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And it's just, like, I think the people are just jumping on, like, we just don't know what Arch is. Like, he's throwing, like, 100 passes.
Yeah.
He could really improve, and he could be the #1 pick in 2027. But I also, like, could see him, falling off. I think the whole next QB group is very, like, it could go in a lot of different directions. I don't think there's anyone that's, like, a standout. They all have, like, at least one major weakness.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of names going into the next couple of years that are interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, like you need wanting to see that lead from Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers. Yeah, even Aller, right? Like there's a couple. I don't know. Have you watched that kid out of Michigan State, Aiden Childs? I don't know if you've watched that kid yet.
No, I've heard about Childs. He's one of the few I haven't seen. I've been seeing people hype up the Mendoza kid as well.
Yeah,
a lot of people doing that. He's like Cal transfer to Indiana, I think.
Yeah, he's good too. He's good.
Yeah, he looks like he can sling it. And like Klubnik seemed interesting. Like a lot of these guys like have good traits to work with, but like even guys like Haller, if he needs to work on like his pocket presence and some like they'll have like a few throws again. They're like, what are you doing? But then outside of that, like he looks good. And then same with Nussmeier. Like I think people comp, like I don't love comps either, but I've seen people do like the Tony Romo comp for Nussmeier. And I'm just like, yeah, I can see that where he's just like balling out and like making crazy plays. And then just makes like 3 of the worst decisions you've ever seen.
Yeah. But you know why I'm in on his trajectory is because of who his father is.
That's right. Like the Saints, right?
Yeah, and he was an NFL quarterback. He was drafted in the NFL as a quarterback too. But there's a couple good, like I know a lot of people are really high on Sam Levitt. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch him too.
Arizona State guy.
Yeah.
I've seen him play live.
Yeah. Oh, Abby, what'd you think?
I thought he was like, I'm pretty sure he's pretty young too. And I was like,
yeah, he is.
When I was watching like Scatabo and stuff, I was like, oh, this he's got some like grit to him. Like he's going out there and he's trying to make as many plays as possible. He seemed pretty talented, but I haven't done like a deep dive on him yet.
So let me ask you this. What are we've talked a little bit about the draft class here. I didn't get your thoughts actually. Trader. What are your thoughts on Trader? And while you're at it, give me your thoughts on Biggers. Best name.
Trader. So Marshall and Trader were the two I hadn't watched much of.
Okay.
I started watching Trader. I think in the 5th round, I like it. I understand some people have problems with like he's not the biggest or fastest guy. But I just like safeties that are very smart and play physical. And I think that gives them a chance to compete in this safety room. So it'll be interesting. Like I'm actually if the safeties aren't playing that great in the beginning, that's the one position where I'm like, just throw in the young guys. Let McMorris play, let Trader play, even let John Saunders Jr. play. Like, let's see what we got. Because that's a position, like the DB room, let's see what the young guys have. See if you have anything for the future there. And I like Trader. I think he's smart, physical, and like he's a very good communicator too, which I think is important for a player having an instant impact. He's not like he's going to be more of like a split field, play like quarters, safety down in the box.
Yeah, you're not
really
putting
like
him on the perch by himself, bro. No way.
Yeah, he's not gonna. Like I've seen him make plays single high, but it's usually like kept inside the numbers. He's not gonna be like a super rangy type of player, but he's smart and physical, very consistent tackler.
Mm-hmm.
I like both Trader and Saunders Jr. I think him, McMorris, those three will be like a fun little battle at the end of the roster.
Listen,
McMorris looked way better last year in that preseason than I expected.
Oh, it was
probably my favorite. He was probably my favorite preseason player to watch last year. So I would love to see McMorris.
I agree. Listen, I mean, when we drafted him last year, I'd watched him and I was not high. And I was like, but I only watched the previous year. I was like, I was not high. So I talked to my boy Ryan. He's like, listen, go back a couple years and go watch his film from, I think it was like, 2022 or 2021. He's like, go back and watch it. And I was like, okay, that's what they saw. And then sure enough, that's kind of what we got in the preseason. And again, that was a scout department pick because the word is the scouting department was really in love with McMorris. Yeah. And it feels like Trader is that all over again. So I'm going to trust them. But let me ask you this, bro. And
that's
you mentioned
what I think too, for the scout prospects guys.
Exactly. And you mentioned this, and I think you make a good point. If he's going up high, it's only in a split look. Let me ask you this. Does that 4.65 40 scare you? Because for a defensive back, now I do think he moves a little quicker on film, but for a defensive back, that number is very, very scary for a defensive back.
Yeah. I think, he's definitely more of like a smooth, short area quickness guy.
Yeah.
I think if you let like the super long routes develop and like he gets super caught out in space, he'll struggle, but those plays don't always happen a ton. I've always said it, like I think like the 40 time, it's one of those positions, like safety is one of those positions where I don't think you necessarily need to have the best 40 time. We've seen plenty of safeties that were like little undersized, ran like a 4.6 or a high 4.5s and still had good NFL careers. I think if he was a corner, that'd be a real issue.
Yeah.
But I think in the 5th round, it's like pretty understandable.
That safety room is going to be, man, that safety room is going to be very, very interesting to see how it all works out. Man, that whole secondary to see how this thing works out is going to be interesting. So let me ask you this. The draft is finished. What are your expectations for the second wave of free agency? And specifically, do you expect them to add a corner through free agency, or do you think they're going to trade for someone like a Jair Alexander? What do you think they're going to do right here at corner? What do you think the answer is that they're going to do?
Yeah, I think for a while I was thinking Rasul Douglas, just because I was like, I don't think that would break the bank. Like, I don't think they should be trying to break the bank. Like, I don't think one player fixes it all anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So I would still try to stay young and just like, for at least future-wise, like, yes, having like a Jair Alexander would be a great like short-term fix. But I think I would probably go for a long-term out view. I would sign someone, but the thing with Douglas is he's a very good zone corner. And if they are going the more man-heavy route, I don't know if I love that. Then there's guys like Samuel, and it's like he has the big injury history, similar to like what Jair has, and Samuel doesn't want to tackle. I know I've seen like there's been like the Newsome, Watson potential trade stuff.
Those are number twos, though. Like, you know what I mean?
But if they do go man, the Chiefs run a lot of man. Yeah, they run a lot of man, and I think the Chiefs route is pretty good. They just had like McDuffie back there, and the rest of the secondary has just been like young guys who are mid to late round picks that were just hungry. That's kind of what I think you're open for in this secondary, to at least get average play. If you get average play and you have a really good front getting pressure, like I think your defense could totally be fine. I think the offense, if healthy, will be good. But I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith in the secondary, whether they add people or not.
So you don't see the turnover numbers changing drastically defensively this offseason, basically in the secondary, right?
Yeah, probably not.
All right, man. So let everyone know where they can find you, what you got going on, and what you got coming out. Let everyone know where they can get you at.
Yeah, just on YouTube, Ryder McConville, doing film breakdowns right now, going through the UDFA class. I already did some of the top guys we talked about, like Conyers, Armstrong, Weiss, just did BJ Adams. I have a Saunders video already done. It's going to go up probably tomorrow. And then I'm just going to continue going down the class and then wait until training camp sort of rolls around.
Man, mini camp this weekend, bro.
Oh yeah, rookie mini camp.
Yeah, this weekend. So, all right, and I appreciate you for joining me. We got to do this again sometime, brother. It's always a good conversation. Guys, do me the favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, go give Ryder a follow on YouTube and X. If you're new here, hit it, subscribe. We're on our way to 20K. I got a big giveaway planned for all of you. All right. So I will be live tomorrow at about 7:15. Me and Doug Lee for the next episode of the starting lineup. Thursday, I'll be live with Neil Driscoll around 5 o'clock. So a lot of content coming your way. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then, you know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day, and have a fantastic rest.